Welcome into Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior. If you want the best Sixers offseason coverage and the best Sixers coverage during the season, I want you to hit that red subscribe button down below as we close in on 7,000 subscribers. NBA draft coming up in about a week. Sixers also figured to be very busy throughout free agency. We're going to keep you in the know with all things going down with the Sixers. As for what we're getting to on today's show, a lot of big trade rumors, according to Keith Pompey, pertaining to Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle, Furkan Korkmaz, Shake Milton, and Danny Green. Pompey saying in the Philadelphia Inquirer that the Sixers are gauging interest on all of these players. And on the back end, going to take a look at some non-superstar trade targets who the Sixers could look to go after to round out their roster to make it fit a little bit better around Joel Embiid, James Harden, as well as Tyrese Maxey. Here is the report from Keith Pompey. The Sixers are trying to gauge the market and see what they can get for the players and draft pick at 23rd overall, one source said. This approach is part of their effort to compile information and see what deals could work when it's time to make a trade. The Sixers realize right now their current roster is not suited to win an NBA championship, and they're determined to upgrade it with established players who can help propel them. And for a Philadelphia team that has failed to make it out of the second round of the playoffs, I understand where Daryl Morey is coming from. He's always been a very aggressive front office executive. He always wants to improve his roster to maximize it around Joel Embiid. He's been a wheeler and a dealer throughout his executive history at the NBA level, and he is looking to win an NBA championship. So you look at the roster right now, and Tobias Harris is a solid player, but he's making a lot of money. Matisse Thybulle is an elite defender who has been named to the All-NBA defensive team twice, but his offensive game is flatlined, and you can get value back and clear up some money by trading away a Tobias Harris as well as potentially a Matisse Thybulle. And then for Danny Green, we covered this earlier in the week, coming off that gruesome knee injury, going into the final year of his $10 million contract, you shed some salary there, and you can also bring in some solid options as well. So as we continue to dissect all of these Sixers trade rumors, I want to hear from you in the comment section right now, and I want you to like the video if you think the Sixers need to shake things up. If you don't think they need to shake things up, I want you to comment why. As for Tobias Harris, I like Toby. I really like how he played after the James Harden trade, after he was able to settle in, get his feet wet, because at the start of Harden's tenure, Toby was a little bit inconsistent. But Harris is a good but not great player who's paid great money, and does he move the needle in a playoff series? He was good throughout the playoffs, but as a number 2, as a number 3, I think there are better options out there. As for Matisse Thybulle, are the Sixers going to give up on their former first-round pick? He gives you value as a defender, but he can't shoot the three-pointer. And he has become inept in the playoffs and a playoff liability. And while the defense is great, he put on a masterclass defending Steph Curry when the Warriors were at the Wells Fargo Center. He has become borderline unplayable throughout a playoff series because teams just leave him wide open like he's Ben Simmons. And if he can knock down three-pointers from about a 36% tile clip to about 40%, he would be such a valuable asset. But he's not even close, and the form does concern me to a certain degree. So if you could keep one of these players, who would you keep among these 5 here? TH for Tobias Harris, MT for Matisse Thybulle, FK for Furkan Korkmaz, SM for Shake Milton, DG for Danny Green. You have to keep one, and you want to keep one. Let me know which one you'd keep in the comment section right now. Coming up next on the show, going to take a look at some 76ers trade targets, a couple of players who I'm really intrigued with, which would also include a reunion with the homie. But first, we have to take down New York Knicks now. For so long and for months at a time, we were beating them with subscribers. But my boy Marshall Green, he's overtaken us on New York Knicks now. 6,441 subs for the Knicks, 6,261. Hit that red sub button right now for the best Sixers coverage, and in doing so, we take down the fraudulent city of New York. Sixers trade targets right now. Let's hit it off with Bogdan Bogdanovic, a really good player who can hit the three. He's fearless, has played in a bunch of big NBA playoff games and international games, and a guy who can stretch the floor and knock down the three. You take a look at the numbers that he put forward with the Atlanta Hawks, and also we know how good he is with what he was able to do against the Sixers in the playoffs back 2 years ago. 15 points per game, north of 3 assists. He shot just a tad under 37% from beyond the arc and about 43% from the field. I think he'd be a great fit on this Sixers roster, and you'd probably have to trade away Tobias Harris, and the Hawks have shown some interest in Toby. That's why the trade makes sense. Next up, Harrison Barnes of the Sacramento Kings. If you like what Andrew Wiggins has been able to do throughout the playoffs, I've always compared Andrew Wiggins to Harrison Barnes. Barnes is a very good two-way player who's excellent defensively, and his offensive game has become much more diversified over the last couple of years. This past year for Sacramento, he was somewhat overshadowed by how bad the Kings were, but the numbers were great. 16.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 46.9% from the field, and about 40% from downtown. This is a championship-level player who was on some of those really good Warriors teams who I think is actually a better fit and a better player than Tobias Harris if you're trying to get past that second-round threshold. Lastly, Dario Saric of the Phoenix Suns. He's coming off that torn ACL. That's why he didn't play at all for the Suns last year as they boosted the #1 record in the NBA. But I like Saric for a couple of reasons. And you think back to that trade back a couple of years ago when he got sent to the Minnesota Timberwolves, as well as Robert Covington, in exchange for Jimmy Butler. You had to make the trade at the time. You were chasing a ring, trying to get the Larry O'Brien trophy, and you had to give away one of your key young assets in Dario Saric. He was a good player for Philly, and he's been solid elsewhere for Minnesota as well as Phoenix. I just think him coming back gives you a small ball center. It gives you some depth at that forward spot and a familiar face who gives you effort, who, like Bogdanovic, has played in a bunch of raucous atmospheres internationally and at the NBA level. I'm down for a reunion with Saric, and I actually don't think that it would require you giving up all that much. If you're Philadelphia, bring back Saric. Bring back the homie. What are you giving up? Maybe you free up some salary and you trade away some of the bench players on this team. Do you get rid of a player like Jaden Springer? I think you can do that as well. 3 trade targets that the Sixers could go after: Bogdan Bogdanovic, Harrison Barnes, as well as Dario Saric. If you had to pick one to trade for, I'm putting you to the test here in the comment section. Which one do you like the most? BB for Bogdan Bogdanovic, HB for Harrison Barnes, DS for Dario Saric. I like all of them to a certain degree, and I actually think that you could trade for Bogdanovic and also a Saric, or if you want to go after a Harrison Barnes, I still think that you can reel in a Saric. Positional versatility is really important in nowadays NBA. Saric gives you that with the small ball 5, him switching as well. He can hit that 3 ball, which stretches the floor, and I love his effort. I love his intensity. Lastly, before we get out of here on 76ers Now, make sure you subscribe. Let's get to 7,000 subs as soon as possible. YouTube.com/76ers TV, or just hit that red subscribe button. Appreciate all of you for rocking and rolling with me and making today's show a part of your day.